All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be back.
So this time, we're looking into something that really caught my eye.
Yeah.
This New Year's Eve blackout in
Yeah.
Puerto Rico.
Right.
And, New Year's Eve, everyone's celebrating, getting ready for the new year, and suddenly,
Ooh.
lights out. Most of the island plunged into darkness.
Talk about a mood killer, huh?
Oh, kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're going to try to figure out today, right? What exactly happened?
Absolutely. Let's dig into the information you've gathered and see if we can shed some light, so to speak, on this blackout.
Okay, so from what I've been reading, it sounds like there's not a lot of concrete info out there yet about the root cause. Like, we know the lights went out big time,
Right.
but the why is still a bit of a mystery.
Exactly. And that's where things get interesting. When you have an outage of this scale, it really makes you stop and think about all the things that could go wrong. I mean, we're talking about a whole island, millions of people.
Yeah, just imagine the chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're in the dark, no idea when the power's coming back. It's New Year's Eve. You've got, families gathered. Maybe you were out at a restaurant or a party.
Totally. You've got folks traveling, maybe even some medical equipment relying on that power. It's a scary thought.
It is, and it really highlights how much we take reliable electricity for granted.
Absolutely. So, okay, we know it's a huge deal, but where do we even begin to try to figure out what caused it?
Well, I suppose we have to start with the obvious suspects. First off, you've got to consider the possibility of a technical fault within the power grid itself.
Like some kind of equipment failure.
Precisely. Something malfunctions, overloads the system, and boom, cascading failure across the grid. It's happened before in other places.
Makes sense. But then there's the whole, was it weather-related thing?
Ah, yes. Mother Nature can always throw a wrench in the works. You mentioned this happened on New Year's Eve, right? I'd be curious to know if there were any reports of severe weather around that time. Strong winds, maybe heavy rain, or even snow in some parts. Those kinds of conditions can definitely wreak havoc on power lines and equipment.
And you know what else crossed my mind? What if it wasn't an accident at all?
Oh, you're thinking about the possibility of intentional sabotage or a cyber attack.
Exactly. It's not like we haven't seen that happen before.
True. That's a valid concern these days. Cyber attacks on critical infrastructure are becoming more and more common.
And if that's the case, we're talking about a whole other level of problems, right?
Yeah.
Beyond just getting the lights back on.
Right. That raises concerns about national security, the vulnerability of our systems. It's a whole can of worms.
So, okay, lots to think about there. But let's shift gears for a second and talk about the aftermath. I mean, whatever the cause, this blackout had to have some serious consequences, right?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Businesses had to shut down, losing who knows how much revenue. Hospitals and other essential services were likely strained. And of course, there's the impact on people's daily lives. No refrigeration, no internet, no way to charge your phone. It's a major disruption.
It's like taking a giant step back in time.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, how long did it last? Did some areas get power back faster than others?
And even once the power is restored, there's the question of damage assessment. Was any equipment damaged beyond repair?
Right. And how much will all this cost to fix? And then there's the emotional toll. I mean, people were probably scared, frustrated, just generally on edge.
Yeah.
Especially on New Year's Eve, a time that's supposed to be about celebration and hope for the future.
Absolutely. And this isn't Puerto Rico's first rodeo with a major power outage. They're still recovering from the devastation of Hurricane Maria back in 2017.
That's right. That was a massive hurricane that wiped out their power grid. And now this. It's almost like, are they cursed or something?
No, not cursed. But it does raise some serious questions about the resilience of their infrastructure.
Like, have they made enough progress rebuilding and strengthening their power grid since Maria?
Exactly. It's almost like this New Year's Eve blackout is like a painful echo of Maria,
Yeah. It's a reminder that even years later, they're still vulnerable to these kinds of disruptions.
And it makes you think, what if it had been another hurricane? Or a major earthquake? Are they really prepared for that?
Okay, so this is pretty heavy stuff. But I think it's important to talk about because it's not just about Puerto Rico, right? This could happen anywhere.
Absolutely. It's a wake-up call for all of us to think about how reliant we are on electricity and what we can do to make our systems more resilient.
So what are some things that could be done, either in Puerto Rico or elsewhere, to prevent this from happening again?
Well, for starters, we need to invest in modernizing and strengthening our power grids. That means using more advanced technology, burying power lines underground where possible, and creating more redundancy in the system so that if one part fails, the whole thing doesn't go down.
That makes sense, but that sounds pretty expensive, right?
It is, but think about the cost of not doing it. This blackout in Puerto Rico is a perfect example. The economic losses, the disruption to people's lives, the potential safety risks, it all adds up.
True. So investing in prevention now could save a lot of headaches and money down the road.
Exactly. And it's not just about the physical infrastructure either. We also need to be thinking about cybersecurity, making sure our power grids are protected from hackers and other malicious actors.
Right. Because as we said earlier, a cyber attack could have been behind this blackout in Puerto Rico. We don't know for sure, but it's a possibility.
And it's a growing threat, so we need to be prepared.
Okay, so investing in better infrastructure, beefing up cybersecurity, anything else?
Well, another idea that's gaining traction is the concept of microgrids.
Microgrids.
Yeah, basically they're smaller, localized power grids that can operate independently from the main grid. So if the main grid goes down, the microgrid can keep critical facilities like hospitals or emergency shelters powered up.
That's a pretty cool idea.
It is, and it could be a real game changer in terms of increasing resilience.
So lots of different options on the table, but ultimately it sounds like it comes down to making this a priority.
Absolutely. We need to recognize that reliable electricity is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And we need to be willing to invest in making sure it's there when we need it.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Definitely given everyone some food for thought.
We've only scratched the surface, but hopefully this deep dive has helped to shed some light on the complexities of this issue. No pun intended.
And remember, this isn't just about Puerto Rico. This is about all of us. So stay informed, stay curious, and keep exploring.
Because you never know when the lights might go out.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then, Greta.